U.S. Treasury or Secretary of Treasury giving his speech on the regulation of cryptocurrency. So without any further ado, as I've already done the intro in part 1, which I highly recommend you go watch before watching this, let's jump straight into picking up from where we left off with Mnuchin.
Last month, led by the United States, the Financial Action Task Force, known as FATF, the global standard setter for AML-CFT, adopted comprehensive measures on how countries must regulate and supervise activities and providers in this space. This was a major step towards harmonizing international regulations concerning cryptocurrencies. We have also had extensive work at the G20, and I will be addressing this again this week at the G7 finance ministers in France. To be clear, the U.S. welcomes responsible innovation, including new technologies that may improve the efficiency of the financial system and expand access to financial services.
So, right there, we're going to pause right away. The UN, or the U.S., has worked with nations around the world at multiple events, such as the G20, which we recently covered, to help create a strong regulatory framework that the global community as a whole can agree to and work on implementing in order to enable the digital assets in this ecosystem that are actively offering financial institutions the ability to improve their operations. The financial industry, right? Who is involved in that right now that anybody knows of? Well, I know of XRP. If you know of another one that banks are actively working with, put it in the comments section below. As I said in my last video, I'm actively looking for another cryptocurrency aside from just XRP that the global financial systems are looking to use. Quorum may be one of those because I've been doing a little bit of research, and JPM coin is apparently built off of Quorum network. So I don't know if there is an underlying blockchain for that yet, but I will be looking into that. At any rate, back on topic here, what we have just heard is Mnuchin using subtle language to indicate to investors in the know what it is that he sees as promising technologies emerging from the blockchain industry. Who are these promising techs? Well, the ones who are engaging with the financial institutions to improve their financial ability, their ability to offer you efficient financial transactions, as well as to increase the penetration of these financial institutions into regions where, well, people just don't have access to that right now. And who do we also know that is essentially the biggest selling point of theirs? That is their whole mantra for being, essentially. Ripple, right? They're all about financial inclusion. They're all about bringing that last 1 billion or 2 billion unfinanced, unbanked in the world into this banking system. That is what they say on a regular basis, that their hope and intention is with creating this more easily engageable financial system where there are not all these crazy fees associated with the traditional correspondent banking system. So that's enough of a tangent on that little intro bit, where I basically I'm now breaking down essentially for you why he's talking about XRP without saying XRP. If you don't understand this, then you're not researched enough, and I understand you thinking that I'm just speculating on this. But having researched the ecosystem as a whole long enough, that's why I'm saying, hey, if you know somebody else that's in this, put that coin in the comment below, because if you're gonna just sit here and talk about your fanboy coin, the one that you have an ideology for, the one that you're obsessed with because it aligns with your worldview, be that libertarian, anarchist, or whatever it is, anti-bank, because you think that you can live in a world without financiers, professionals when it comes to this stuff to advocate and help manage the funds of the average person who does not know math. Phone, you're muted. Why? Apologies. It went off in my last video, and it's on mute too, is the crazy thing. I don't know how I'm still coming through beeping. At any rate, let's jump back into this video, and we're going to hear a little more from Mnuchin.
That being said, with respect to Facebook's Libra and other developments in cryptocurrencies, our overriding goal is to maintain the integrity of our financial system and protect it from abuse. Treasury takes very seriously the role of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency and will continue our efforts to protect our country and secure the U.S. and global financial systems. With that, I know there's been a lot of interest in this subject and perhaps a few others, so I'll take a few questions in the back.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
So again, just to clarify, his pep talk for the good assets, he's not talking about Bitcoin or Libra. So if you are a Bitcoin idealist, if you are a Bitcoin maximalist, go away. He's not talking about you. He's not saying you're good. Sorry that upsets you, right? If that upsets you that Bitcoin is not being accepted or approved by the United States government, well, you haven't been paying attention, have you? Or you're brand new to this space and you think that, well, I bought Bitcoin, now I'm in it, so you're telling me that I made a bad decision? Well, no. I personally believe Bitcoin will still do well even if the U.S. doesn't enable it, because it's still going to be a great store of value just because it has a fixed supply and it's pretty scarce. So it has the potential in the long run to still gain value, at least against fiats. Now, what I am saying is that Bitcoin is not going to do well in comparison to how the other cryptocurrency, the other crypto digital assets are going to perform as this market enters mainstream adoption, right? Bitcoin was the early prototype. It was the Friendster. It was the W3C web browser that you probably don't even know existed, right? Well, there's a lot of tech savvy people, so they probably are well aware of WC3 or W3C. But at any rate, the idea is that these early systems are often called prototypes. The first is always usually called a prototype, and it's a prototype because it's inefficient, it's clunky, it does the job but not efficiently. And new technologies have emerged year after year, year on year, that improve upon these systems. That's how Ethereum is, for all intents and purposes, aside from the fact that it can be inflated, so it's not a good store of value, but in all other regards, it is still a superior blockchain to Bitcoin. Now, XRP being technically the first third-generation cryptocurrency, because its protocol was elaborating upon Ethereum's and taking basically the good things from Bitcoin and Ethereum and mashing them into one, and then adding all kinds of little features and extra, different methodologies of verifying your transactions and everything, through I don't want to get too technical on the XRP ledger versus a traditional, but the idea is that, XRP it was developed based upon the best qualities of both Bitcoin and Ethereum, in addition to extra features that make it even more superior than the culmination of the two, right? The sum of these parts is greater in its whole form, so to speak. So now we're going to jump into the Q&A. So expect that there's a chance that you're going to get like weird clips in this, because I'm going to be cutting out several portions of this video where there are stupid questions not related to cryptocurrency or the financial institutions as a whole. So let's hear this first question. Hopefully this one's on point.
So let me make the first comment, which is I say we, either at the principals level or at the deputies level, we've had multiple meetings across the regulators with representatives of Facebook and expressed our concerns. We've also had multiple meetings of the FSOC working group. I think, Jay Powell and I meet weekly, and we've talked about this extensively. So there are these discussions going on. They will continue to go on. Again, to the extent that Facebook can do this correctly and can have a payment system correctly with proper AML, that's fine. They got a lot of work to do to convince us to get to that place.
So the first question, for those who couldn't hear the gentleman in the back, obviously saw me put my headphones on because I couldn't hear him. He is asking as far as how Facebook, if Facebook is actively meeting with individuals of the financial regulatory committees of the United States, such as FSOC. And Mnuchin said yes, they are, and it's not outright. What he clarifies is that his statements earlier is that even though Libra is not in line with what the U.S. would like to see for a product being offered to the masses as far as a currency from them, that there is still the potential for Facebook to reel in this Libra coin and make it compliant with what the U.S. expects from them, right? So, second question.
Facebook's had privacy issues in the past. How does that play into your concern, and what is your level of concern with Facebook having Libra?
Well, again, I would just say we obviously have concerns with the privacy issues. There's been items in the press about potential settlements. I'm not going to comment on that. But obviously, the regulators, and one of the regulators, as I've said, most people haven't heard on FinCEN. So one of the reasons I wanted to explain this is whether they're banks or whether they're non-banks, they're under the same regulatory environment for FinCEN, and we will hold them accountable. And they're going to have to convince us of very high standards before they have access to the U.S. financial system.
Mr. Secretary, at the social media summit last.
So there you go. He's saying that basically just what we iterated off of our last question. He's just further hammering down that I need to look into FinCEN, because FinCEN is probably we need to find connections between FinCEN and Ripple, because as it sounds, FinCEN is the one that is going to be enforcing these new regulations upon non-financial, non-banking participants within the financial industry. So we'll dig a little bit deeper on that. Maybe I can get a video out related to that tomorrow, or later today, or maybe tomorrow. We'll see how much time I get. If I can get something out to you guys, I'll try and do that. But let's see what our next question is. And
the president essentially accused the social media giants of an animus against conservatives. Can you assure the markets and everyone watching that whatever action this government will take is not a result of the president's view that these social media giants are biased against?
Well, again, what I will tell you is the president does have concerns as it relates to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and those are legitimate concerns that we've been working on for a long period of time. But no, we're not going to target any one entity. Everybody's playing by the same rules. Again, whether you walk into a money service provider or whether you walk into a bank or you do it digitally, you're going to have to adhere to the same rules.
So there you go. So there you have it. Mnuchin is saying that the question was a little bit out there as far as like whether these tech giants have some agenda against minorities. Mnuchin diverted that question and pushed it back to the fact that ultimately this meeting is to bring attention to the fact that the White House has serious concerns about Bitcoin and Libra coin, because unlike other participants within this ecosystem, who he's not named by name, but we are aware of at least one of, based upon the requirements, XRP, right? Have to keep iterating that. But the point of this is to clarify what the White House expects from this asset space, what it expects from these blockchain developers, and in regards to their staying compliant with Know Your Customer policies, KYC, anti-money laundering, AML, and counter finance terrorism, KFC, right? Or CFT, KFC. I'm hungry, apparently, but CFT, right? Counter finance terrorism. So the idea, though, is that Bitcoin and Libra coin cannot currently adhere to these, and that's why Mnuchin is out here, and that's why we're making this video series, to make it blatantly clear to the crypto community what Trump meant about his tweets. Ultimately, I think that's why this meeting's happening, because Trump tweeted, he hates Bitcoin, it's speculative, and he's not a fan of any unregulated cryptocurrency. So I get to make a video talking about Mnuchin and him saying, hey, we don't like these guys that are not compliant with regulations. They refuse to comply. There are guys, but he's also saying there are people out there who are complying. Well, there's only one that I know of that's complying. It has a blockchain that has a digital asset attached to it. And that's XRP. Well, that's Ripple, thus XRP. That's R3, thus XRP. Circle does not have a digital asset attached to it. Some of you have asked. I don't believe that Circle is publicly traded yet either. So unless you are a licensed, I forget what the term would be. You have to have a license to be able to actually invest in private companies. I've heard, I'm not 100%. I don't know how to invest in private companies. But I've heard that you have to actually have a license to do such. You must be like a regulated individual, essentially. I guess that's how it works. Don't take my word. I'm not a financial advisor, right? This is evidence to such. I have ignorances that limit my ability to actually offer you legitimate financial advice. Maybe someday, but not today. And maybe even if I do ever become a financial advisor, I'll probably still say this is not financial advice, right? Because you should always do your own research. At any rate, I will potentially still be doing a part 3, but ultimately the topics covered beyond this, there's very little extra added from the press questions. They start getting all political, and you can tell that Mnuchin gets frustrated. And yeah, so I will see if I can parse out some clip bits from the last section of this, but ultimately I've elaborated on everything that's talked about further. You know, most of the words that I have shared with you came directly from Mnuchin, essentially, without him explicitly mentioning XRP, right? He only mentions the features inherent in Ripple as a company as far as working with regulators and bringing up the point that cryptocurrencies that are not actively engaging with regulators better watch out. And essentially, that is most cryptos aside from XRP. So be ready for some big fallout in the coming months in most of the marketplace, and that may negatively impact XRP's price, you know, because the masses don't know what I'm sharing with you. And so the masses may still sell out of XRP, those who don't understand what they're holding. I'm sure there's still plenty. I see them in my comment section. People saying that they hold XRP, but those individuals still express a great deal of a great lack of insight into what has really unfolded over the last few years, right? And something else that Mnuchin, since this may be the final part, something else Mnuchin points out later in this video is that another reason why they're holding this conference is to make clear that this asset space, that they have had a lot of work. They've been doing a lot of work over the last year, essentially, and that this Facebook Libra coin basically gives the government an excuse to come out publicly and say, hey, we've done a lot of work, so you better start complying because we put our work in, so you got to put your work in now. Some of these people out here have been working alongside us, putting their work in, but Facebook, Libra, Bitcoin, where's that work at? Bitcoin, you haven't changed since 2017. How are you going to support a price over $20,000 when you couldn't support a price over $20,000 in 2017 and nothing has fundamentally changed? We're already seeing the backup of your transactions, right? We're already seeing people start to incur some pretty silly fees just for making a transaction on the Bitcoin network. You're expensive. You're more expensive. It's more expensive to use Bitcoin right now to do transfers between Bitcoin than to do transfers between banks. So why the heck is anybody going to use Bitcoin when it's already too expensive to use for moving $20 to $30, right? Who's going to move $20 to $30 in Bitcoin? Not me. If I did it, I feel like if I move $30, I'm going to get, 15, maybe 20, because the network fees are going to be stupid. So yeah, it's not scalable right now, people. That's why it's being called a store of value, because if you want to see anything come from whatever you hold in Bitcoin, you cannot treat it as a currency. You have to, whatever you put in it, you have to just leave it there until, until it matures, however long that takes. Now, overall, the digital asset ecosystem as a whole should be viewed as that, right? You should be investing in these things in the long term, not just to get rich quick. If you think you're going to get rich by the end of July, you're probably going to sell whatever you have, whether that's Bitcoin or XRP, you're probably going to get rid of it if you think that you're going to be rich by July, because you're probably not. You need to hold these things for the long haul and wait for this ecosystem to mature. Stop expecting overnight wealth. If it happens, you're probably going to die anyways. Let's be real. Most people who suddenly come into a large amount of money, especially individuals who never had such a large amount of money, they blow it. They blow it on garbage that ends up putting them in deeper debt than they've ever been in, ultimately. And if they don't do that, they go and blow it on a lifestyle that is unsustainable for their body, doing lots of drugs, and they die from an overdose. Or they go down that route where they blow everything, they come out with null, they realize they blew the greatest opportunity of their lives, and then they blow their brains out because of depression. This doesn't go well, no matter what, with sudden wealth syndrome. So if you're just now getting involved and you haven't actively thought how you're going to act as a rational entity once you get this money outside of how you're going to spend that money, if you've only thought about how you're going to spend that money, and I'm going to say, I'm really afraid for you. That individual, I hope for your sake, this thing stays flat for a year. Because for your sake, if this market explodes by the end of the month, you're probably going to be dead by the end of the year. Because you're not planning ahead. You're only thinking of how you're going to spend the sudden wealth that you're going to come into. And that's the wrong way to be looking at your life. That's the wrong way to be looking at this ecosystem and environment. This is a way to change your life for the rest of your life if you're smart about it. If you plan ahead and if you prepare to, instead of spend the money you're about to make, to reinvest it into your future, right? You can take profits, and I encourage everybody to take profits when the bull run does come, but do not go and blow those profits on depreciating assets like a Lambo or a new car at all. If your biggest purchase with the wealth you get from this is a new car, you messed up. And you don't understand money. And you're probably going to be broke again before the end of this year. Even if XRP goes to $10,000, you'll be broke by the end of the year. Because you're not planning ahead appropriately. And you're not planning intelligently to make your money work for you. You're planning on working for your money again after you blow it all on something stupid that's not going to keep making you more money. It's not going to keep making you gains that you can live off of the gains, right? Be smart. Think like the wealthy. Stop thinking like a broke joke that's going to go blow all their money the second they get it. Stop planning to get rich overnight. Start planning to be rich for the rest of your life. Mentality, direction, means. These are all critical things to achieving that goal that you have, whatever it is. And as always, I do hope that everybody reaches their goal in life. I hope that my content helps you to become fascinated with this ecosystem as a whole and do your own research to find the assets that your investment will help you to achieve whatever that dream is that you have in this life. I can't say what yours is. I can only say what my dreams are. But those are for me to live out, and I don't want to speak them into reality until hopefully reality brings them into existence, right? So with all that said, thank you all for tuning in to this part 2. I can't wait to see you in my next video. As always, if you're new, hit that sub, ring that bell so you can stay up to date with all my cryptocurrency videos. And on your way out, since you made it to this point, please don't forget to hit that like. I'll see you all in my next video, as always, on Mars.